Hey guys, creator mom. I gotta talk about this movie, Husband, Father, Killer, the story of Alyssa Plato. Um, it's crazy, this movie. It's about a young girl who gets with this guy. She's like 15. She gets with this guy. I think he was a bit older than her. Um, her parents didn't want him to. She met him on in a chat room. He love bombed her, of course, and all that. And he was very controlling, but she didn't realize this. See, I think that when you don't know better and you're vulnerable to people like this, narcissistic men and stuff, people, that when they are being controlling, you maybe you don't realize it because you think that that's like loving or something. And then plus they do like love bomb you and tell you how wonderful you are, because of course every thing has to bait its prey. So anyways, so she gets with this guy and she ends up taking off with him, she ends up running away from home at like 15 with this guy. She's so convinced that like he loves her so much. Then she has a baby when she's young, and he starts really exhibiting signs of his like physical abuse. He starts physically abusing the baby, so the baby will stop crying. And she then decides, hey, let's give this baby up for adoption. I think that she figured in her mind that was the only way to protect the baby against him, because she obviously wasn't in a place where she felt like she could just leave. Like, for whatever reason, she didn't feel like she could just go back to her parents or run away with the baby. For whatever her thought process was, giving this baby up for adoption was the best thing. The baby was like 6 months old, I think. So anyways, it was a girl. The little girl, she grows up with another family. And the movie shows you how when the girl turns 18, she wants to know who her biological parents are. Well, her adoptive father is like, well, why don't you just wait? Why don't you just wait like until you have like more life experience under you? Like your parents gave you up for adoption because like they weren't like very like men, like well off people, like emotionally, and stuff like that. So but her adoptive mom was like, well, if you decide you want to see your parents now, you're 18, like you can or whatever. So she meets her parents. Oh my god. But for some reason, the woman, Alyssa, is still with this guy, like 18 years later, and has 2 more daughters with this guy who's completely abusive. But one thing is this: in the movie, they never show him really hitting her. They never show the guy, I forgot his name in the movie, I think it's Steve or something. They never show him hitting Alyssa. So maybe he was slightly physically abusive with her. Like they only showed him really like they didn't show him really being physically abusive, but he was absolutely mentally, emotionally, financially there. I mean, they did a good job at like displaying that narcissistic personality that thinks it doesn't have to follow any rules, that it's above the law all the time. It doesn't even have to follow moral like compasses or law. It has no conscience, really. These people, um, they don't do no wrong. You know what I'm saying? They have no like feeling of like empathy or guilt, or well, maybe they have guilt, but like for instance in the movie, she's like, you were supposed to she wakes up, Alyssa wakes up, and the water is shut off. She goes to turn on the faucet and there's no water. And they live in a pretty nice house too. And she goes, you were supposed to pay the water bill, you know? And he's like, oh, so what? I'll just take my wrench and I'll turn it on. You know where they shut the water off at the street. I'll just turn it on. She's like, what if we get caught? Like, oh, he's like, oh, what are they going to come arrest you? Like, this totally reminded me of my ex, like, in a way. Like, they don't, like, they'll do things like lie on their taxes when they do their taxes, like, because they just feel like they have the exception or something like that, you know? It's like, oh, well, you know, I can lie on my taxes. Like, I don't make that much money anyway. They're not looking out for me. Like this guy, oh, I'll just go turn the water on with my, like, wrench or whatever. Like, he didn't care about, like, getting in trouble at all, you know? Like, it's hard to, could be a little bit hard to decipher because, look, in some ways, not every law and not everything the government tells you to do should you do. Like, it's a thin kind of line between a person, like, I feel like me, like, when the government tries to invade or go, what's the word? Your constitutional rights, okay? Anything that the government tries to do that's gonna impeach, no, damn it, that's not the word either. Sorry, I haven't drank my full cup of coffee. That's gonna violate your constitutional rights. Yes, I believe that it's good to, like, learn about that stuff if you can, and like how we can, like, just stand up for ourselves in these ways against, like, government tyranny. But other things kind of make sense, like that narcissists will think like, oh, I don't have to follow those rules. Like, they're not conscientious about it. They're not like conscientious objectors. They just like want to like not do something for the hell of it because they think they have a right. Like, they think they have a right where they kind of don't have a right. See, that's this is like the difference. Like, for myself, if I feel like, I mean, COVID is really a primary example, or vaccines. Like, a lot of people think, well, vaccines are in the law for public school in some states, but in many states, most of the states, there are exemptions. So people like me, a conscientious objector, will say, we're not like, oh, we're not going to do that because we're above the law. No, it's like, okay, I've learned that within the law there are exemptions, and I am going to be educated and use those exemptions because that is what I conscientiously believe. You think about it and you understand what you're doing, but narcissists are different. They just like they won't like pay bills. They'll leave like they don't have no problem like switching phone companies and having bills unpaid like in their name, like tons of bills, like, and they don't think nothing of it. Like, it's like a habit. They don't have a problem with like being late on bills and accruing like late fees and like not paying things. And I'm trying to think of like more examples. They just don't care, you know? But a person who's a conscientious objector to something like a regulation or an imposed order that's unconstitutional, like, we're more conscientious about what we're doing. And we're not doing it out of like wanting to be like, fuck the government, I don't give a fuck about that. You know what I mean? It's not coming from that place. It's coming from a more grounded place. I'm not explaining this correctly. I feel like narcissists, they don't give a fuck about rules, like, at all. Okay, another example. Like, they think they're just entitled. Like, my ex had this car lot. It wasn't even his. It was his dad's. It wasn't even their property, okay? They didn't own it. They were renting this spot. Well, what happened was Family Dollar purchased this lot, and the owner sold it. Owner sold the lot to Family Dollar. So the people who rent obviously have time to vacate. They need to go. Okay? This guy protested this. He sat in the lot and protested this whole thing for like months, as to where an officer had to come and remove him because he thought that Family Dollar should pay him. They think they're entitled where they have no entitlement. They have no proof. They've done no research. It's not like he said he had some piece of research that said you have to give a tenant this much notice or you owe them or something. He had nothing, just nothing. Just nothing but his own entitlement to be like, no. They don't care about finding evidence to prove or like they're what they think they deserve or what's going on. They just think they're entitled, period. So, and I kept saying, what are you talking about? Like Family Dollar doesn't owe you any money. Like, you weren't even like the owner of that. You were just a renter. And still, they don't get it. They don't get it. They won't be like, oh, well, yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, I guess they don't. No, it's like, no, they owed me something. They owed me something. So anyways, this guy kind of reminded me a little bit, but this guy I feel was way worse than my ex. Like, these people have like levels of intensity to them. The sad part is their 18-year-old daughter wants to get reunited with them. And for some reason, at this point in time, that's when the mom decides she's going to leave this guy. Because the biological father, how he spends time with the 18-year-old daughter is he takes her out and he gets her drinks and gets her drunk and stuff like that. Bro, long story short, and I started to see it coming in the movie, and I was like, please don't tell me that this is what's going to happen. Please don't. So when the only reason that Alyssa was allowed to leave this guy and get a divorce from him was because that 18-year-old daughter decided, oh, I'm going to stay and live with dad. He took advantage of her wanting to be close with her biological parents. And what he did was, okay, here's another note. And my friend Karen talked about this too. How we don't talk bad about the narcissist to our children. Because why? Because we think we don't want to put that burden on our kids. But narcissists have no problem talking shit about you to the kid. They love it. They'll lay it on. They don't give a fuck. They don't care about the child and the child's emotional well-being and how they're going to see things. They don't give a fuck. So, and Alyssa did not tell the truth to her 18-year-old daughter. She didn't say, Alyssa, I put you up for adoption because your father was abusive to you. He was hurting you as a child, and I couldn't bear to see that or witness that. And I thought the best thing to do was to put you, into a safe family, She didn't tell her the truth. So because she didn't tell her the truth, and because she probably didn't want to burden her, when the father got alone with Alyssa, the biological father. She said, your mother gave you up because she wasn't done partying and drinking. So then Alyssa gets pissed off. Then the girl, Kate, I think her name was, gets pissed off at Alyssa, which was really upsetting because I wish that Alyssa would have been like, I had to give you up for adoption because he was pinching you and he was putting you in a cooler when you were crying. But she couldn't break her heart like that, But the narcissist father, biological father, had no problem lying. She lied. He lied. Because he wanted her on his side. And he knew that 18-year-old girl was going to be his new supply. So what happened was, because he took her out and got her drunk, I think that Alyssa decided, all right, this is the last straw. I don't want our other 2 girls seeing this. I can't believe she had 2 other children with this dude. Wow. But yeah. So she said, let's separate. I'll go somewhere else and live with the girls. Because of course he wasn't going to let her have the house. Narcissists don't let you have the house. So she didn't realize that the only reason that he was letting her leave with those 2 little girls is because he had a new supply, because that 18-year-old biological daughter wanted to live with him and stay with him because of the lies he spoke about Alyssa. So she stayed and lived with him, and you could see the relationship was getting weird. He was getting weirdly close to her, and she knew. She was picking up like, oh, these vibes are more sexual and romantic than they are fatherly. And she goes, is what we're doing like right? She says in the movie. Poor girl, man. She was brought up in a good, loving family, The adoptive family was a good, loving family. And she got confused, like, I could relate with her because, not that has happened to me, but the confusion that kind of hits you when somebody's advancing towards you sexually with a sexual energy, and you're like, but you almost like kind of get paralyzed, and you don't act on what you in your gut is feeling like, oh, this feels uncomfortable, this feels kind of wrong, but there's something out here and maybe like this is okay, because I think it's confusing because sexual vibrations feel good. It feels good, but it's coming from the wrong person, the wrong situation. So it's like your intuition's telling you like, oh, this is not good, but then your body's like, oh yeah, this feels good. Like, yeah, I like this sexual vibes, like, ooh. But anyways, but see, and they had no connection relationally because she was given away as a baby. So she had no, like, moral connection to this biological father. And so what he was doing, I think, just had more power over her, And then he was like, oh, what? No, yeah, what? It's fine. Like, they just act like they're not straightforward. Like, yeah, I'm advancing on you sexually like a predator. No, they just, oh yeah, no, it's, they just don't act like it's not happening. And then they show this scene where she's having like a nightmare in her room, and then he comes over to her and he's like, oh, it's okay. He's trying to like comfort her, and then he sits there and gets close to her, and boom, it happens. I'm like, no. I was like, no, please, no. Oh my God, this is so fucking cringe. I can't believe he's having sex with his daughter. So, well, not the first time it's happened, right? In families and things. So, he gets her pregnant. But this is a total narcissistic personality. They justify everything they do. Everything is justified. Every fucking thing is justified with them. And he says, he thinks it's totally right that he got her pregnant. He's like, yeah, we're in love. The government's not going to stop us, because I think in their state, incest was illegal. Maybe in all the states, incest is illegal. I don't know. So, and she's duped. She thinks like, yeah, we're in love. Like, this girl is so brainwashed and kind of controlled by him. He worked her too. Like, you could just the way they, just the way that they do with their supply, you know, the narcissist. So, she even calls her adoptive parents, like, yeah, we're getting married, I'm having a baby, like, come to my wedding, I'm so happy. I'm like, could you imagine being an adoptive parent and your adopted daughter's calling you, telling you she's having a baby with her damn biological father? Like, how do you not lose it? I was like, what the fuck? But her adopted father, like, held his cool. He was like, Alyssa, I mean, he was like, Kate, like, it's not right, you know, like, that's just not right, you know. And she's like, yeah, but I'm happy. They go to her wedding. It wasn't even a wedding. It was just like the parents and the biological father. Can you imagine being a grandmother? Your son is marrying your granddaughter, and you could tell the biological father's mother was just like, you could tell that she had to do whatever he wanted, because she probably knew of his temper and didn't want to face his narcissistic rage. So this poor girl was living in this delusion that she actually loved this guy and that he loved her. This guy who is her biological father. Can you imagine that? How twisted. So, unfortunately, what happens is, when the biological mom finds out about all of this, she just is like, oh my God, she loses it. And she has him arrested. She does take legal action and has him arrested. He gets put in jail for incest. And so does she. And the baby gets taken away. And when he got out of jail, she called him, Kate, his biological daughter, she called him. He goes, oh my God, he's all excited. Like, can't believe you called me. He's like, we're so meant to be. So fucking deluded with his own biological daughter. We're so meant to be, da-da. She's like, no, I called you to tell you, like, we shouldn't do this. We can't do this, you know. And because she rejected him fully, she saw the result of his narcissistic rage. So what he did was he killed their son, and he stalked her down with her dad, with her adopted dad, and he shot them, and he shot himself. I wasn't sure if he was going to kill himself or not. I'm like, nah, he ain't going to kill himself. He's too narcissistic to kill himself. But he shot himself too. So very very tragic story. The only bright side to that story is at least Alyssa and the two daughters that remained kind of got to live happily ever after, because Alyssa did end up finding another partner actually quite fast after leaving the abusive dude. And I was nervous for her. I'm like, oh girl, I'm like, you didn't even have time to heal. Like, is it going to be the right person? Is it going to be the same type of guy? Like, oh Lord. But yeah, she kind of lived happily ever after. So that was positive. But her biological daughter, you know, died. Her adopted dad died. And the abusive, narcissistic husband died. So the fact that the narcissistic husband died was the only good thing that came out of it. But very sad story. 25 minutes. I'm gonna have to, maybe I'll edit this down, I don't know. So yeah, it wasn't really it was a Lifetime movie, I think, but the storyline was crazy. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, that is crazy. But I mean, if I actually think about it, I've heard stories where the dads, even dads who live with their daughters, well, look at Joyce Meyer. Her dad sexually abused her, I think. So, I mean, it's not uncommon, but I don't think that a lot of dads who sexually abuse their daughters really take it as far to knock their daughters up and say like we're in love and we're gonna like live together romantically. That was like another level. That's that really narcissistic level, because he had that way about him to get her to believe all of this shit. All right, guys, I just wanted to talk about that movie and get it off my chest. Peace.